That is a series win in Texas and an above 500 record. Let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And the Detroit Tigers have a winning record on the season. They are 31-30 after a 3-1 victory over the Texas Rangers on Tuesday night. Welcome in, everybody. Happy Wednesday to all. The Tigers are now 7-3 in their last 10. I believe they're also 8-3 in their last 11. And they are on a 3-game heater, a 3-game winning streak for your Detroit Tigers. Let's get greedy. Let's go for a sweep today. But this was another low-scoring, grind-it-out type of ball game with some really good pitching by your Detroit Tigers. Let's start there, right? And this is, if you've been listening at all this season, first off, I appreciate you. Second off, again, we make the joke all the time. You could really call what went right and what went wrong the pitching and the hitting, and it would kind of come across very similarly, although there was some decent hitting performances in this game, enough to get the job done. And that is, again, how this team was built. And it's frustrating sometimes, and I'm still not sure I necessarily agree that that's how the team should have been built. But these type of victories are how the front office viewed a lot of this season going. And so when talking about this game specifically, again, what went right? The pitching was absolutely fantastic. Jack Flaherty, 5 innings, 2 hits, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Only goes 5 innings and was only at about 60 or so pitches when he got pulled after the game. He turns out that he had back tightness, and that is why the Tigers pulled him. They said all the beat writers were all over it. Evan Petzold, Chris McCoskey was all over it as well. Said that in the clubhouse, he was moving still kind of gingerly and kind of cautiously, but also told reporters that he was taken out of the game for precautionary reasons and that he believes that he is still going to make his next start. Now, there's a big difference between hearing that from the man himself. Like, all of these guys are competitors and they're professional athletes and they want to play every single day if they can. So there's a big difference between hearing that from him and hearing it from a coach or a trainer. So in my eyes, like, we'll see, right? We'll see. But I'm glad that it's not anything arm related, right? The fact that it's just back tightness, I can at least sleep easy tonight and not be too terrified. Even if he does land on the IL, it'll probably only be one stint, miss a start or two, and then come back. I can at least live with that. I can tough that one out. But he was absolutely fantastic in this ball game. We already read the line. The fastball and slider continue to be absolutely stellar. The fastball in this one, it was command, dog. I mean, this was a remarkable clinic, if you will, on fastball command, up in the zone, fastball command, low and away. Very often, no fear to go up and inside, no fear to go up in general. Just a guy that really loves to raise the ladder and go up the ladder on 2 strike counts with fastballs. And it's been working wonderfully. And if somebody makes an adjustment later in the year, then there you go. You got to make an adjustment back, and you have to adapt and adjust. But for right now, he goes to fastballs an awful lot on 2 strike counts, and it just consistently works for him. The other thing that he really likes to do is go, if he has someone in the 2 strike count, he'll throw, especially a righty, he'll throw that slider low and away, and then he'll throw fastball low and away because those two pitches out of the hand look the exact same, right? Like the exact same. From a lefty, you might get a little bit of a different reaction. He approaches lefties differently. We actually talked in his last start about how he approaches lefties very often, right? That slider low and away to lefties. Well, he goes slider, that's the difference between front door and back door, right? He goes slider low and away to righties as well. But genuinely, that is a very, very, that's why they get paid millions of dollars, is because trying to figure out the difference between a slider low and away that's going to be a foot outside versus a fastball that's a dot low and away, and the reaction time it takes to do that is just nearly impossible. And Jack Flaherty exploits that and has done phenomenal this season. Actually, the biggest thing in this start, though, that jumped out at me was the usage of the curveball. We talked about in his last outing that I thought that was maybe the best his slider has ever looked. I think this might have been the most best his curveball has ever looked, right? We know that he has the fastball and the slider very often, but this game was very knuckle curve is what he labels the pitch as, and he was throwing it a ton, and it was effective, and it worked, and I think it was his best pitch. It was getting a ton of strikes in the zone. It was getting a ton of swings and misses. It was uber effective. Easily, I think his most effective pitch. Now, obviously, like the sequencing, like the fastball set up, everything else still, don't get me wrong, that's still the bread and butter, and that's still what makes everything else work. But I thought the knuckle curve was fantastic. I'm not used to him throwing it that often, and it was great. So it just continues to mix things up. He has he faced a lineup in the Rangers. They showed it on the Bally broadcast before the game that doesn't swing and miss a ton outside of Adolis Garcia. And so he adjusted and adapted and threw a pitch that he doesn't usually throw as often as he did a lot in this outing. I thought he was absolutely stellar, and fingers are crossed that he is not going to miss a start, that he's going to be fully healthy. And yeah, please, please. But that goes on now to continue the conversation and put a bow on this. A 3.22 ERA on the season. If you just look at the last 4 to 6 weeks, he's legitimately been one of the better pitchers in the American League, man. It has been fantastic. He has been a joy to watch. This has been a massive success for Scott Harris, for Chris Fetter, and co, for everybody involved with this decision, and obviously for Jack Flaherty himself, a guy that a lot of people completely wrote off at only 28 years old, despite some of his previous seasons, and to have this kind of bounce back is nothing short of awesome. So really cool to see, really great story. Please be healthy, please. We'll keep an eye on that. Well, obviously, we have a little bit more of an injury report and some roster moves and whatnot at the end of the show that we will add on to that conversation as well. Other things that went right in this ball game, the bullpen. I know it got a little bit hairy there at the end, but I don't really think that was too much the bullpen's fault. I think that was some sloppy defense. We'll talk about that and what went wrong. But that was the only run they gave up, was that McKinstry and Riley Greene play where it just fell into no man's land there in between them. Besides that, this was shutout ball from the bullpen yet again for the second game in a row against, I know their record isn't great, but this is still a potent and very talented offense. Let's get into some individuals. I want to talk Faedo. I want to talk Shelby Miller in a big way. And then we'll talk a little bit of Holton and Foley as well. We'll do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you are to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals and all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. Like I said, their last-minute deals are phenomenal. You can save up to 60% buying just last-minute tickets on sports, but also concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They have zone deals, which are really, really cool. This is one of my favorite features, where you choose the section and then Game Time chooses the seats, and you get a little bit of a discount buying your tickets that way. They have all-in, exclusive in-app deals on some more discounts and whatnot. They're flash deals. You also can get a view of your seat before you buy, like I said, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. That also is included with a 110% credit of the difference if you find a ticket in the same section for less. So take all the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers who do tune in every day, and we will be back tomorrow recapping this series finale against the Texas Rangers and talking about anything else that happens around the Tigers organization. Also, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today, the free 24/7 sports streaming channel. You can check it out, again, for free on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today, or for free in the Amazon Fire TV channels app. The Tigers won on Tuesday night by a score of 3-1 over the Texas Rangers. Talking about the bullpen, really the pitching in general was a absolute huge factor in this win, as we have said many, many times this year, and now more times than we have said in a loss. That came out. That was terrible wording there. The Tigers are over 500, and that's pretty cool. That's all I was trying to insinuate there. Let's talk about the bullpen. Alex Faedo went 1 2/3, 1 hit, no runs, 3 walks, and 2 strikeouts. You know, I really like Faedo a lot. I wanted him to make the team out of camp. His ERA on the season is still 3.38, still pretty solid. But lately the command has been starting to waver a little bit. This one, I mean, pretty obvious. You can just box score watch and kind of see that. More walks than strikeouts in less than 2 innings is never really a great sign. Because he throws his slider so much, I would almost rather he misses out of the zone, right? If you have a guy whose best pitch is a slider and he's missing in the strike zone, that usually leads to a lot of home runs, a lot of hard hit contact because he's hanging that slider over the heart of the plate. So I don't know if lesser of two evils, I guess, is missing outside of the strike zone than inside, but that's still a problem that needs to be tightened up. He's been giving up quite a few runs as of late, just in general. I know Mark Gorosh of Days of Roar put out there that he had given up, I think it's 7 runs in his last 10 innings pitched going into this outing. So not great. Something to keep an eye out there for sure. This is really just a command-based thing. We know the stuff, that slider especially, is so good. And at the end of the day, still walked out of here without giving up an earned run, which we will gladly take. Definitely something to keep an eye out for. I think that first month, 5 weeks, I was just so high on him coming out of spring training, and he really backed it up with a lot of good performances. And I think, kind of like a lot of players on the team, honestly, May wasn't as kind to him, and now we kind of have to see what we have in him. So I'm interested to see his usage going forward as well, especially after Bo Brisky goes 3 innings. We know we have multiple guys now who they're comfortable throwing out there for multiple innings. So Faedo's specialty of, I can be the multi-inning kind of Tyler Alexander swingman type of role isn't as, necessary, dare I say, as it was maybe initially thought going into the year, right? Just because, Holton's gone multiple innings this year. Shelby Miller went over an inning tonight, right, on Tuesday night. Again, Bo Brisky, Joey Wentz. I think his days are kind of limited too, but like another guy. My point being, we'll keep an eye on Faedo. That's really just the long-winded way of saying that we'll keep an eye on his progress. Shelby Miller, unbelievable. When I say I think this was comfortably the best that Shelby Miller has looked all season, I mean that tenfold. I cannot articulate that point enough, actually. 1 1/3 of perfect ball, 3 of the 4 outs he recorded were strikeouts. And the reason why that is the best I think he's looked all year is because that is easily the best fastball he has featured in a Tigers uniform. This is a guy that took such huge strides forward with the Dodgers last year, sub-2 ERA, had such a phenomenal season. And so far, he has a 4.08 ERA on the season this year, and that's after this shutout performance on Tuesday night. So, like this year, he just hasn't had the swing and miss stuff. He hasn't had the zone presence that we're used to. And a lot of that had to do with the lack of fastball effectiveness. It was kind of I don't want to use the word lazy, but it was kind of just a flat, not very effective fastball. It was a lazy fastball. And so after I said I wasn't going to use the word, I did anyway. So I think that if this is what his heater is going to look like going forward, and wasn't just first start bat, juices flowing, pumped up for getting back on the mound and whatnot. If that's how his heater is going to look going forward, I feel significantly different than I did about Shelby Miller pre-injury, where I came on here and said that I didn't want him pitching in high leverage. And again, night and day. To me, this is one outing. We'll again keep an eye on this as well. But he looked vastly different, like noticeably. You knew after he threw 2 pitches how much different he looked than he did pre-injury. So I'm hoping that is a good sign of things to come. And then Tyler Holton, Jason Foley. Obviously, Tyler Holton technically gives up the earned run because that isn't an error because baseball. But I thought Tyler Holton was fine. I didn't have any issue with how he looked. He should have had a 1-2-3 clean inning there and didn't because of the poor defense. And then Jason Foley gets the 1 out. Thank goodness. They were fine. But all in all, I think this bullpen has had back-to-back really solid performances. Now, the one was just Bo Brisky, right? It's not like they used a slew of arms, but they have set themselves up to still be able to use a lot of their bullpen in this finale on Wednesday, today, as you're listening to this, right? You can go back to Foley again because you have an off day on Thursday. Brisky, maybe you are going to hold out on. 3 innings is a lot. Maybe you wait on him, but and I don't know, Shelby Miller back to back off the IL, probably not. But I don't know. Outside of that, like you still have most of your pen at your disposal going into this finale, which I think is a great thing. Other things that went right in this ball game, a little bit of offense sprinkled in there. Zach McKinstry, the Zach McKinstry game, as people are calling it now, but hits the homer and the triple. He was on cycle watch for a little bit there after the second AB, then goes over and looks like Zach McKinstry in his last 2 at-bats, but apparently he has crushed Dane Dunning in his career. People were talking about it on Twitter or X, whatever it's called. And then they also mentioned it to AJ in the post game. They're like, man, did that have anything to do with the decision making? And AJ was like, well, yeah, yes, obviously it did. And it worked out. So good for Zach McKinstry. Also, just in general, Javi Baez is getting less and less playing time this year than we have been used to in his first 2 years of his Tigers career, which I don't think anyone is super upset about. But, we'll talk about Zach McKinstry a little bit at the end. Great day at the plate. Not a great day with that one play defensively. Riley Greene can say the exact same thing. Actually not. So I really liked the home run. That was a slider low and in that he turned on, lifted, pull side, beautiful, everything great. The other 3 at-bats, I still kind of didn't really like. He's not swinging well. Like it's really just as simple as that. I know his numbers have been better lately than they were for a little bit there in May, but this is not peak Riley Greene. Like what we're seeing right now, I'm glad that there's production, and I'm glad that him at not his best and not at his peak production still looks like a competent everyday major leaguer out there and is still productive, right? That's great. But this is still not. There's still something missing on those swings, and a lot of that has to do with still just the driving everything into the ground and still all the ground balls. He really has to make some more adjustments with his swing to get to that level that we have seen him do, but over short periods of time, and we need that to be consistent over a long period of time. That's, I think, the end of everything that went right. Let's talk things that went wrong, and then we'll talk stuff. All right, we will do all of that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you the best shot to bring home a big win of your own right now. New customers can get $150 in a bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150. It's bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate you all greatly for tuning in as always. Also, be sure to tune in to the Locked On Tigers postcast. I have not been plugging that nearly enough, so I apologize to Jake Rietma, who's been doing a fantastic job over there. If you don't want to wait all night long and whatnot till the next day to get your breakdown on the game, Jake Rietma has been doing a phenomenal job right after the final out, giving you a Tigers show live on YouTube over at Locked On Sports Detroit, and also in, if you're listening on audio, then just in the Locked On Tigers feed. So be sure to check that out. The Tigers win this ballgame. Let's talk about things that went wrong. This wasn't the most clean and perfect ball game in the world. The defense at the very end of the game, again, was brutal. Whose fault was it? I think I really have to, if they were mic'd up, I'd have to hear that to know the answer to that, to be completely honest with you. Optically, that's Riley Greene's ball, right? He's the one coming in. But, if Zach McKinstry is calling him off consistently and is standing, somewhat near where the ball is going to land, then that's kind of a tough judgment call. Now, again, Riley Greene hasn't played a lot of center field, and I do think that optically that is Riley Greene's ball there. He's the guy that's coming in. Zach McKinstry's the guy going out. That's pretty basic stuff, but I do think that, again, I kind of need to listen to the audio. I need to be a fly in Globe Life Park to figure out Field Park, whatever it is, to have a real concrete answer for you, regardless of I'm not a big who is at fault kind of guy, as you all know by now, but regardless, it was a bad play, and it gave a lot more of some thumping in your chest than was necessary for this ballgame. The Tigers, this was, again, not the cleanest game in the world. We'll talk about some other things that went wrong here on the offensive side of the ball in a second, but they had the upper hand, and they deserved to win this game. They looked like the better team tonight, right? And for a 1-game sample size, they looked like the better team. And the fact that the game tying run even came up to the plate in the 9th inning because of that is ridiculous and egregious and needs to never happen again. So I was unbelievably frustrated. I was saying words I'm not going to repeat on air when in the moment, but they got the win. We can breathe a sigh of relief there. And hopefully they go into the video room and figure out how to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. Offensively, really the only big gripe I had offensively was this team is just so frustrating in clutch situations. High leverage, it just seems like they do not come through very often. We talk about RISP all the time. They went 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position in this game. And, there's when you look throughout the history of baseball, there's not teams that are this team was really bad offensively, but was really good with RISP, or vice versa. Doesn't really happen either, at least over huge samples. Right. So, when they struggle with RISP, to me, it's more so just a reminder. It's we need some better hitters. You know what I mean? You need more talent in this lineup still. And we knew that going into the year. That's not a surprise, but 0 for 5, it was really rough. And I think the biggest thing in this game just continues to be Riley Greene with runners in scoring position, man. It's been a thing his entire career and continues to be something that he needs to improve on mightily. And we talk about Torkelson all the time in those situations. Obviously, is in the same boat, but Torkelson has to work on everything right now. That's why he's in Toledo. But, Riley Greene, we see the flashes, and we've seen a really, really good baseball from him over a prolonged period of time. The home run was a huge moment in this game. It put, gave us some insurance runs and some security, but consistently throughout his major league career, he has really struggled with RISP, and that's something that has been frustrating and that he needs to improve on in a big way if he wants to be kind of that prolific middle of the lineup bat on a really good, playoff or World Series caliber team. So that was kind of frustrating. That was kind of it for what went wrong, though. Just this team was really bad in clutch situations at the plate, but they still had enough to get the job done. And then that bad defensive play at the end of the game. Let's talk stuff. Okay. I thought Colt Keith, his at bats, I continue to be impressed by, and he went 1 for 4 in this ball game. But I think it's night and day how different his at bats look. So I'm still looking for more. Like there is just this whole other level to Colt Keith that eventually he will reach, and eventually I cannot wait to introduce to you like the peak Colt Keith potential that a lot of people have been seeing kind of brewing in his development in the minor leagues for the last several seasons. So I'm very excited to share that moment with you when it fully arrives. And again, in May, he certainly hit significantly better than he did in the month of April. Justin Henry Malloy continues to be hitless. He has not gone on base yet. Starting off, he has quite a few strikeouts as well. As I said, right? Like we talked about this the episode. What was that, Monday's show before he made his debut? Like we need some patience. I cannot reiterate it enough. I feel like I say this every episode at this point. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be a broken record, okay? But like the gap between AAA pitching and it's like the Simpsons part, say the line, right? Like the gap between AAA pitching and Major League pitching has never been greater, especially in terms of velocity specifically in the history of our sport. And so when these guys get called up, like Wyatt Langford, we saw crushed through the minors, is one of the biggest hitting prospects in baseball. A lot of people are still mad the Tigers didn't take him. His OPS is under 600 right now, and it's June, and he hasn't even been demoted. He's still up. He's like a 590 OPS, right? Like it takes. We talked about it just a second ago with Colt Keith, right? Like it is hard. It is really hard, and very few just have a natural kind of transition. If you look at the leaders for Rookie of the Year, like the top 5 favorites for Rookie of the Year, like they're pretty much all pitchers. It's like 8 or 9 of the top 10. If you just take the top 5 in the AL, top 5 in the NL, are like all pitchers. So like, yeah, like it's really hard right now to adjust to Major League pitching and to get your sea legs under you. I actually like the fact that his outs have been pull side at a minimum. He needs to lift the ball. His timing still is certainly very far from being like Major League ready. He needs to make a lot of adjustments. I think he will. It's the second game of his Major League Baseball career. I'm really not losing sleep over it. And I like the fact that he's at least not ridiculously late on a lot of these fastballs in terms of, popping them out to the right side or anything like that. At least we're pulling some baseballs. It's something to start off the career. I'd like to see him draw some walks just because we know that that's his MO. But I also think that the scouting report is pound the strike zone because that's what, was kind of a somewhat of a weakness of his in the minors. So we will see how he continues to develop. We're 2 games in. I don't hate the swing. I don't hate the approach. Just a matter of getting that timing down. And then we will truly see what kind of player he could potentially become down the road. Some roster moves we talked about earlier. Shelby Miller back from the IL, and Mason Englert gets sent down to the minors. Also forgot to mention on yesterday's show that on Monday's show, with JHM getting promoted, Buddy Kennedy gets designated for assignment. So we'll see. There has been no update at the time of this recording, whether he has cleared waivers or not. I'm not sure if he's going to or not. But that is the corresponding roster move, to that move, which also means that Kerry Carpenter is not on the 60-day IL, which is good. Again, we'll take it. I have no clue. I'm not a doctor, very notoriously, but it's at least somewhat of a good sign that he's not getting put on the 60-day right now. And then, like I said earlier, Jack Flaherty says that he plans on making his next start, but we'll kind of see what happens with that. Foley, I really think that there's a chance they might still use him tomorrow. That was a big concern by some people, is like, oh, you had to burn him because of that poor defensive play, whatever. With the off day, I think they might. I think they're trying to protect Foley's arm a little bit because the velocity's been down. So we'll see. In a perfect world, you just make that catch and you get out of the inning there. But it wouldn't surprise me if in a 1-run game they still went to Foley just because they have the off day on Thursday. The thing I want to end with, besides our very quick preview of Wednesday's game at the very end, is the Mud Hens lineup on Tuesday night. Parker Meadows leadoff, Spencer Torkelson, Jace Young, Dylan Dingler, Eddie's Leonard, Bly Madris, Ryan Valade, Justice Bigby, Ryan Kreidler, and Kiter Montero was pitching. First off, far cry from what the Mud Hens used to look like under Avila. I want to start off by saying that, okay? Just objectively, this player development has been a lot of steps in the right direction over the last couple of years. I think Scott Harris deserves some credit there, but I also think a large majority of the credit goes to Ryan Garco. We talked about that a little bit last week. The biggest thing that jumps out at me, and the reason why I even bring this up, is because it's not because of Torkelson and any of that. It's because Eddie's Leonard and Ryan Kreidler are back in the lineup. And I know that Zach McKinstry had a great game today, and I'm not trying to like dunk in his Cheerios here after a really good game in which he was single-handedly responsible for 2 of the 3 runs that the Tigers scored. But Leonard and Kreidler are on the 40-man roster, and Kreidler especially is a really good defender that can play shortstop. And Zach McKinstry has not been very good offensively. And Ryan Kreidler can play a lot of different positions, even got some looks in the outfield in spring training. I think the writing is really on the wall here for, once Kreidler gets a few weeks, maybe, 1 to 3, 2 to 4 weeks of offense in AAA under his belt, assuming he's hitting decently. I think the writing is really on the wall here for Kreidler to replace Zach McKinstry before the All-Star break. And again, that could happen in 10 days. It could happen in a month. I'm not really sure. But I think that Kreidler and Leonard were just in rehab assignments in West Michigan 2 days ago, and now are both healthy and back in the Toledo lineup at the same time. And so I really do think that the writing is kind of on the wall there. I would be very surprised if McKinstry finished the season on the Detroit Tigers roster. And Kreidler's exciting. He's really, really good defensively. Has shown flashes of offense in the minors, but again, we've talked a lot over the last week about the difference between minor league and major league pitching, so we will see what happens with that, but did want to throw that out there. Let's get Grady. All right, that's one of my favorite baseball sayings. If you win the first 2 games of the series, let's get Grady. I love that. That's just like a universal baseball saying that we all have with each other. Let's get Grady. All right, let's get greedy. Let's go for a sweep. Kenta Maeda will be the starter for the Detroit Tigers, looking for any signs of life from him on the mound, looking for just anything that we can hang our hat on and be like, wow, that at least gives us some sign of encouragement going forward with him. Again, being that it's a 2-year deal. On the mound for the Rangers is Jose Urena. I understand that Jose Urena has reinvented himself in Texas. He's been used as a reliever a decent amount. He's 1-5 on the season, but has a 3.74 ERA. They've kind of changed the shape of his sinker, got a little bit of a cutter thing going on. They've completely changed his usage on his changeup. He didn't throw his changeup nearly as much when he was a Tiger as he does now. I understand all of that, and I'm happy for him. Good for you, bud. Right? Good job, and I'm glad that you that he's reinvented himself and I don't know, he has a role on a good Major League Baseball team again, because it looked like for a while there that, especially after his Tigers tenure, that may not be the case. That all being said, I might cry if this offense gets torched by Jose Urena. I really might. That would not, and they've given themselves a cushion. They can afford a loss here. All right. Well, I'm glad they got 2 wins. I don't expect to sweep in any series. I say that all the time, right? I'll take my 2 of 3 and be happy about it. But I remember what Jose Urena did in a Tigers uniform. I remember. People don't forget. And I would really like to score some runs. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day, and we will be back tomorrow recapping that ball game as well as anything else that happens in the Tigers organization. All right, peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.